How RSV saved my life. After I had RSV at the beginning of April, a couple of weeks later, I had trouble breathing, but I decided to go ahead and mow the front and backyard. It was difficult. My chest and the glands in my neck felt swollen and hurt. I assumed the pain in my neck was from the lingering effects of RSV, but I mowed that evening on the 27th of April. The next morning, I woke up with pain in my chest and the glands in my neck and left shoulder was hurting. I was going to have Linda take me to the hospital, since we lived down the street, but the pain started to become too severe. When the paramedics came in to hear the symptoms, they did not waste time. They rushed me out on the gurney because it was not the first time the paramedics had been to our house. Last February, when they arrived, my heart rate was 600 BPM in the upper atrial chambers. Usually people die from a massive stroke or leave a vegetable. When I arrived at the hospital, my cardiologist rushed me straight to the cath lab, where they thread a catheter through your groin into your heart. It turned out I had a small heart attack and 3 blockages. So his team rushed me out of the lab to a thoracic surgeon and his team, which were waiting for me. Once there, it was a 4-hour surgery, which they performed what is called a coronary artery bypass grafting, called CABG. When he opened my chest, he grafted the 3 blocked arteries, including the left descending artery, the widowmaker. What made it even more complicated was I have microvascular heart disease. Unlike coronary artery disease, which is due to a blockage, small vessel disease, SVD, also called coronary microvascular disease or small artery disease, is a condition in which the walls of the small arteries in the heart, the tiny branches off the larger coronary arteries, are damaged and don't dilate properly, restricting some surgeons from working on the arteries because they are too small. The condition causes lasting chest pain and raises your heart attack risk. During the operation, my surgeon pressed his finger on the back of my heart and my heart started to spasm. It went into AFib, on arrhythmia. This was another complication. To bring my heartbeat back to normal rhythm, the doctor performed an ablation, a procedure to treat atrial fibrillation. It uses small burns or freezes heart cells to cause scarring on the inside of the heart. This helps break up or insulate the electrical signals that cause irregular heartbeats. This can help the heart maintain a normal heart rhythm. Also, to worsen the situation, I went back into diastolic heart failure, which had been dormant. During the surgery, Linda was waiting in the waiting area with the other families that were waiting to hear about their loved ones. One by one, the doctors would come out to tell them the results. One of them was a 55-year-old male that had heart surgery. The doctor came out with a solemn look. He slowly walked over to the family, and he had to tell his wife and family that he died during surgery. This terrified Linda. She had never felt so alone and scared. When my surgeon came out after the surgery, he walked up to Linda and looked around and asked her where her family was. Then he realized she was all alone. My surgeon is a big man. He looks like a cowboy, about 6 feet 5 inches. He looked down at her and gave her a big hug and told her, "Kent made it. Close, but I will live." So, after the surgery, I was in CCU for 2 weeks, during which time, because of the RSV, I had another complication. I was retaining fluid, so laying or leaning far back, I would feel like I had no air. During this stay, they did a CT scan to check the fluid in the chest cavity. Usually, I almost fall asleep during a CT scan, but this time when they laid me flat on my back on that cold, solid surface, I could not breathe in or out. It felt as if I were underwater or being waterboarded. I have never begged or pleaded for anything. I was screaming and kicking my feet, throwing my shoes across the room because I was starting to panic, and they didn't take me out so I could try to take a breath. They insisted on me taking a breath. So not having a choice, I tried so hard to breath, in which I had no air to take, and they made me do those 4 times. That must be the closest to being in a small space, unable to get out, sit up, or breath. It is what I think of when reading The Premature Burial, Edgar Allan Poe in college, Buried Alive. So, after this and the doctors brought the fluid buildup under control, I left the hospital to recover at home. I was still having difficulty breathing, but the doctors considered manageable. The doctors released me after being in ICU for a week on a Wednesday for the next 3 days, and my breathing became worse. I would reach for something, I would gasp as if I ran a marathon, or if I walked 5 feet, the gasping was almost unbearable. By Friday, I couldn't take it anymore. So Linda took me to the emergency room by car. It only takes 7 minutes to go the 2.7 mile to the healthplex. So, they put me this time ICU. They weighed me, and I had put on an additional 20 pounds. of water weight which seem impossible. Unless it's happening to you, I was like a water balloon about to pop. Even my skin hurt being stretched further than it's ever been stretched before. Your skin feels as if you took a straight razor and sliced the sides around your waist. This time it was terrible. They treated me with more diuretics. By Tuesday the water weight was off enough to leave the hospital. When I came home it's been difficult, but the breathing is easier. But the eating has also been an issue after being on a ventilator. Ever bite? I would almost the choke, but I'm gradually able to walk and not huff and puff as bad. Each day will be a better day. My surgeon said without the RSV bringing it to the surface, I would have had a massive heart attack with little warning. The RSV it did cause the lung issues, but at least I am alive. I have been saying for a long time God has a purpose for me here. I have never cursed God for the suffering I have had the last 7 years, not only the heart but cancer, debilitating injury to my back from falling out of a tree. 7 years ago, I had one of the Hispanic workers that was unloading the moving van tell my wife that he saw Jesus in my eyes. We assumed he meant I was going to die, and he asked her to have me stop helping them unload the van, so I did. My primary doctor and 3 cardiologist surgeons have told me this past year that I must be good with God, with what I have been through. I should not have made it, and all of them are religious, not just saying so. I have always tried to think of others and do for others without expecting anything in return. My priority currently is to help my wife Linda, son Matthew, and my friends when I am able to. I look forward to being able to have the strength to live life again. The year before last, when I left one of my favorite fishing spots at the Blue River in southeast Oklahoma, which I have fished for the last 40 years, I had a feeling this was the last time. As I drove away from the river and looked back to one last time, I felt I would not be back. Now I have hope, thanks to God, my wife Linda, my doctors. I will be back fishing again at the Blue River.